Have you ever wondered what it takes to become truly great?
What if I told you that the youngest king in the history of Israel, a mere child, managed to bring about the greatest spiritual revival his nation had ever seen? It sounds impossible, right? But this is the story of Josiah, a boy king who didn't just inherit a throne. He inherited a kingdom that had lost its way, and he made it his mission to bring it back to God. In a world where most would crumble under the weight of such responsibility, Josiah rose up, not just as a ruler, but as a reformer, a leader with a heart fully devoted to his faith. But here's the twist. While he achieved greatness in ways most reis of Israel couldn't even dream of, his life ended in a way no one expected. The very king who restored the temple, rediscovered the law, and led his people back to God's truth met a tragic fate on the battlefield. How could a life so aligned with God's will take such a sudden turn? In this story, you'll uncover the answers that challenge everything you thought you knew about leadership, faith, and the unpredictable path to greatness. Stick with me, because what you'll discover about the reign of Josiah will not only inspire you but may just make you rethink what it means to be truly devoted. This isn't just another story from the Historia Biblias. It's a tale of ambition, faith, and the shocking reality that even the greatest of kings can face unexpected trials. Judah was shrouded in deep spiritual darkness. Successive rulers had abandoned God's laws, allowing idolatry to flourish. It wasn't an easy place to grow up, especially for someone as young as Josiah. However, after his father's assassination, Josiah, at just 8 years old, ascended to the throne. Imagining a boy, barely able to understand the complexities of life, being placed at the center of a kingdom plunged into chaos, is almost unbelievable. But what sets Josiah apart is not his age, but what he would come to represent for biblical history. Most people, when they think of kingdoms and kings, imagine power and authority. However, Josiah's reign began with fragility. He inherited a kingdom where moral values were in ruins. What can be learned from this? Often in life, we are placed in situations where everything around us seems broken. The secret is not in having all the answers immediately, but in seeking wisdom to begin rebuilding. Josiah, still a boy, demonstrated the power of searching for something greater. Just like him, anyone can become an agent of change, even in times of darkness. Josiah's journey as king, such an important and heavy title, began surrounded by advisors who, fortunately, wanted to guide the young monarch down the right path. And this is where Josiah's story deeply connects with what many people face today. How often, in the midst of challenges, are we forced to rely on others to make the right decisions? Josiah undoubtedly had to rely on his counselors while learning to navigate the world. The lesson here is clear. When we surround ourselves with the right people, we can overcome even the greatest challenges. At just 8 years old, Josiah was thrust into a position of immense responsibility. His reign began amidst a time of spiritual decay, where the people had turned their backs on God. Yet, even in this challenging environment, Josiah began to show signs of wisdom far beyond his years. With the guidance of faithful advisors, he started to seek God, delving into the teachings of his ancestors. Imagine being so young and yet having the clarity to pursue something greater than yourself. This moment marks the beginning of Josiah's transformation, a pivotal point not only for him as a rei but for the entire Historia Biblias. What's remarkable about Josiah's early reign is his willingness to learn and grow, despite the negative influences surrounding him. Many of us can relate to this, being in environments where it's easier to follow the crowd, yet choosing to go against the tide. Josiah's story teaches us that, no matter how young or inexperienced we may feel, the pursuit of wisdom and righteousness can set us apart. It's not about knowing everything from the start, but about the desire to seek what is true and right. The boy Rei was already on a path that would reshape his kingdom. As Josiah grew older, he developed a deep desire to restore his nation's faith. It wasn't enough for him to just rule. He wanted to bring his people back to God. This determination is something many people struggle with in their personal lives, having the vision to bring positive change but facing the challenge of implementation. Josiah, however, wasn't deterred. He began to act on his convictions, showing that leadership isn't about age or experience, but about heart and purpose.
His story, rooted in the Historia Biblias, serves as a reminder that impactful leadership starts with a sincere desire to make things right. Josiah's journey took a significant turn at the age of 16. He wasn't just interested in ruling his kingdom. He was deeply curious about knowing God on a personal level.
Imagine being that young with all the distractions and temptations around you, yet being so committed to something higher.
At 16, many people are still trying to figure out who they are, but Josiah already had a sense of purpose. He embarked on a spiritual quest, a search that would define not only his reign but his legacy in the Historia Biblias. It's a powerful reminder that the desire for spiritual growth can emerge at any stage in life, regardless of the challenges we face. At 20, this inner journey turned into outward action. Josiah's spiritual understanding had deepened, and he knew that the kingdom could not continue on its current path. He initiated bold reforms to cleanse Judah of its idolatry, and that took immense courage. It's easy to accept things as they are, but Josiah wasn't willing to let his kingdom continue in spiritual decline. He ordered the destruction of pagan altars and idols throughout the land, sending a clear message. Judah was going to turn back to God. This was no small task, and it wasn't just about physical destruction. It was about changing the very heart of the nation. Many people today can relate to this process of cleansing. Whether it's removing toxic relationships, habits, or influences, Josiah's actions can inspire us to take a stand. When you're seeking something deeper in life, there comes a time when you have to make tough decisions. For Josiah, tearing down the idols wasn't just about eliminating physical symbols of false worship. It was about resetting the spiritual compass of an entire people. His decision to act at such a young age shows us that change often starts with the courage to confront what is wrong and the willingness to face resistance. One of the key aspects of Josiah's reforms was his focus on action. He didn't just pray for change or hope things would improve. He made it happen. This is a crucial lesson for anyone seeking personal or spiritual growth. It's not enough to desire change. You have to be willing to put in the work, sometimes tearing down what has been built up over years. Josiah's spiritual journey teaches us that faith without action is incomplete. It's easy to talk about what needs to be done, but true leaders like Josiah show their commitment through their actions. Josiah's spiritual reforms extended beyond Judah. His desire to see his people restored to their faith wasn't limited by geographical boundaries. He reached out to regions that were once part of the northern kingdom of Israel, showing his deep commitment to a unified worship of God. In today's world, this could be seen as a leader not only caring for their immediate circle but expanding their efforts to bring about positive change on a larger scale. It's a reminder that when we seek spiritual growth, our actions often have a ripple effect, touching lives far beyond what we initially imagined. This phase of Josiah's journey is a beautiful example of how spiritual growth is a process, not a one-time event. At 16, he sought God. By 20, he was transforming his kingdom. Growth takes time, and Josiah's story reminds us that we shouldn't rush it. Every step he took was intentional. Every decision was rooted in his desire to lead Judah back to its spiritual foundation. This is a valuable lesson for anyone feeling the pressure to achieve immediate results. True, lasting change happens over time, with persistence and faith. A question arises when we reflect on Josiah's reforms. What are the idols in our own lives? These might not be physical objects, but things that distract us from what truly matters. Josiah was determined to remove anything that stood between his people and God, and this idea can inspire us to evaluate our own lives. Whether it's materialism, distractions, or habits that pull us away from our purpose, Josiah's actions encourage us to take bold steps in removing them. The lesson is clear. If we want to grow spiritually, we need to clear the path. Even though Josiah's reforms were drastic, they were necessary. He understood that partial change wouldn't be enough to restore the nation's spiritual health. The same goes for personal transformation. Half-hearted efforts often lead to temporary results. Josiah's unwavering dedication to reforming Judah teaches us the importance of full commitment when we are on our own journeys. Whether it's pursuing a new career, improving relationships, or deepening our spiritual lives, we must be all in if we want lasting impact. In Josiah's story, we see the intersection of youth and wisdom. Many might have doubted his ability to lead such a significant spiritual renewal at such a young age. But Josiah proved that age doesn't determine effectiveness. It's the heart, the will, and the guidance from God that matter. His journey shows us that no matter where we are in life, whether starting out or years into our journey, what matters most is the sincerity of our pursuit and our willingness to act. At the age of 26, Josiah took another bold step in his spiritual journey. He ordered the restoration of Solomon's temple, the very heart of Judah's religious life. This wasn't just a physical project. It was a symbolic act of reconnecting the people to their spiritual roots. Over the years, the temple had fallen into disrepair, a reflection of the nation's spiritual decay. Josiah knew that in order to truly restore Judah's relationship with God, the temple needed to be revived. His decision was not just about bricks and mortar. It was about restoring the foundation of their faith, a momentous point in the Historia Biblias. The restoration of the temple was a massive undertaking, one that required both resources and dedication. It's much like when we decide to rebuild something in our own lives. Whether it's a relationship, a career, or our spiritual well-being, it takes effort and commitment. Josiah's willingness to invest in this project shows us that real change often starts with a willingness to repair what has been broken. The temple wasn't just a building. It was the center of worship, a place where people could reconnect with God. Josiah understood this deeply, and his actions were a reflection of his desire to see his kingdom realigned with God's will. During the renovation, something extraordinary happened. The high priest discovered the lost book of the law. This moment was a turning point not just for Josiah, but for the entire nation. Imagine working on a project, only to uncover a treasure that holds the keys to your past and future. That's exactly what happened here. The book of the law was a sacred text that had been forgotten, buried under years of neglect. Its rediscovery sparked a deeper spiritual revival across Judah. This is a powerful reminder that sometimes, in the process of rebuilding, we find lost pieces of ourselves that we didn't even know were missing. The discovery of the book of the law is an example of how God can reveal truth in unexpected ways. Josiah didn't set out to find the book. He set out to restore the temple. But in the process, something far more profound was uncovered. In our own lives, we may find that when we commit to rebuilding or restoring an area that's been neglected, we often uncover deeper truths about ourselves and our purpose. This discovery shifted Josiah's perspective, showing him and the people of Judah the importance of living according to God's word. It was a moment that would define the rest of his reign. Once the book of the law was found, Josiah knew that it wasn't enough to just possess it. The people needed to understand it. He immediately sought to learn its teachings and apply them to the kingdom.
This is a powerful lesson in leadership. Discovering something valuable is one thing, but using it to bring about real change is another.
Josiah didn't just keep the knowledge for himself. He made sure that it would impact everyone under his rule.
In today's context, this could be likened to finding a tool or a resource that has the potential to transform lives and then sharing it widely for the benefit of others.
Josiah's dedication to understanding the book of the law shows us the importance of diving deep into our own spiritual journeys. It's not enough to skim the surface or only apply what's convenient. True transformation requires us to fully engage with the wisdom we've been given. For Josiah, this meant aligning every aspect of his reign with God's commands. For us, it could mean committing to a deeper understanding of our faith, our values, or our purpose. It's about taking what we learn and allowing it to shape our decisions and actions, just as Josiah did. The restoration of the temple and the discovery of the law also reveal something important about timing. Sometimes, we're not ready to find what we need until we've laid the groundwork. Josiah's journey up to this point had been one of seeking God, reforming his kingdom, and restoring the physical structure of the temple. Only then was the book of the law revealed. This teaches us that the most profound revelations in life often come after we've prepared ourselves through action and dedication. Josiah's experience encourages us to trust the process and remain committed, knowing that deeper truths will be revealed in time. As Josiah read the book of the law, he was deeply moved by its content. He realized just how far Judah had strayed from God's commands. This is a powerful moment in the story, as it shows that even a REI as devoted as Josiah had room to grow in his understanding of God's will. His humility in accepting the truth of the law and his willingness to act on it sets a powerful example for anyone seeking personal or spiritual growth. It's a reminder that no matter how much we think we know, there is always more to learn and ways to improve. In Josiah's restoration of the temple and the discovery of the law, we see the merging of action and revelation. His decision to rebuild wasn't just about the temple. It was about reconnecting the people to their faith. The discovery of the law was the spiritual fuel that would drive the next phase of his reforms. This is a reminder that when we commit to restoring what has been lost, both physically and spiritually, we often find that the journey itself reveals new insights and opportunities for growth. After the discovery of the book of the law, Josiah knew that this wasn't something to keep hidden or reserved for the elite. It was a message for all the people of Judah, and he was determined to share it. So, he gathered the nation together for a public reading of the law. This act was monumental. Imagine an entire kingdom coming together to hear the words that have been forgotten for so long, words that had the power to reshape their spiritual lives. Josiah stood before them, not just as a REI, but as a leader who wanted his people to return to God. This event marked a turning point in the Historia Biblias, setting the stage for a renewed covenant between the people and God. The public reading wasn't just a formality, it was a call to action. As Josiah read the words of the law, the people were reminded of the covenant their ancestors had made with God. It was a sobering moment. They realized how far they had strayed and how much had been lost. But it was also a moment of hope. Josiah's reading reignited their faith and inspired a collective desire to return to a life of spiritual obedience.
It's similar to how, in our own lives, we sometimes need a wake-up call. Something that shakes us out of complacency and reminds us of the commitments we've made, whether to ourselves, to others, or to God.
Josiah's leadership during this time is a powerful example of what it means to lead by example. He didn't just tell the people what they should do. He showed them through his own actions. This is a key lesson for anyone in a position of leadership.
Whether you're leading a team, a family, or even yourself, people are more likely to follow when they see you living out the values you speak about. Josiah's public reading of the law was his way of saying, "I'm not above this. I'm committed to this, just like you."
It's a reminder that real leadership requires personal accountability and humility. The reading of the law also highlighted the importance of understanding and applying what we learn. It wasn't enough for the people to hear the words. They needed to internalize them and allow those words to shape their lives moving forward. This is a lesson we can all take to heart. How often do we hear or read something that inspires us, only to let it fade away without taking action? Josiah's reading was a call to not just listen, but to live out the teachings of the law. For us, it's a reminder that knowledge without application is like having a map but never embarking on the journey. One of the most profound aspects of this event was the communal nature of it. Josiah didn't read the law in private or limit it to a select few. He brought everyone together, from the elders to the common people, because he understood that spiritual renewal was a collective effort. This speaks to the power of community in our own lives. When we come together around a shared purpose or belief, we can inspire and support each other in ways that are impossible alone. Josiah's public reading of the law shows us that spiritual growth isn't just an individual journey. It's something we experience and strengthen together. As the people listened to the law, they were faced with a choice: continue on their current path, or commit to the renewal Josiah was calling for. This moment of decision is something we all encounter at various points in our lives. We hear a truth that resonates deeply, and we're left with the question, what will we do with it? Josiah's reading wasn't just about imparting knowledge. It was about inspiring action. In the same way, when we're faced with new insights or opportunities for growth, it's up to us to decide whether we'll embrace the change or let the moment pass by. Josiah's public reading of the law also demonstrates the power of words to unite and inspire. The law had been forgotten, but once it was spoken aloud, it brought the people of Judah together in a shared experience of faith and renewal. This is a testament to the importance of speaking truth, especially in times of confusion or uncertainty. Just as Josiah's words helped to realign the hearts of his people, our words have the power to inspire, encourage, and bring clarity to those around us. It's a reminder to be mindful of the words we speak and the impact they can have. The covenant renewal that followed the public reading was a direct result of Josiah's leadership and the people's response to the law. They didn't just listen passively, they made a commitment to return to God's ways.
This is a powerful illustration of the importance of renewing our own commitments, whether spiritual, personal, or relational. Sometimes we need to be reminded of the promises we've made, and sometimes we need to recommit ourselves to the things that matter most. Josiah's reading of the law offers a blueprint for how we can do that in our own lives, by listening, reflecting, and then taking meaningful action.
Josiah's public reading of the law wasn't just an isolated event. It was the beginning of a national shift towards spiritual obedience. The people of Judah had been living in darkness, but through Josiah's leadership and the power of God's word, they were given a new path forward. This moment in the Historia Biblia serves as a reminder that it's never too late to return to the truth, to realign ourselves with our purpose, and to make a fresh start. Josiah's story shows us that even in the darkest times, there is always hope for renewal and transformation. Josiah's reforms didn't stop within the borders of Judah. His passion for restoring true worship to God led him to extend his efforts beyond his own kingdom. He targeted regions that had once been part of the northern kingdom of Israel, a land that had long since fallen away from God's commands. This move was bold. He wasn't content with just transforming Judah. Josiah wanted to bring all of Israel back to its spiritual roots. His actions were not only about religious reform, they were also about unity. By extending his reforms, Josiah showed his desire to unify worship across all of Israel, setting an example in the Historia Biblias of what it means to lead with a heart for the whole, not just the part.
The regions Josiah targeted were deeply entrenched in idol worship, and the task of cleansing them was no small feat. Imagine going into an area that has long since abandoned the truth, where false beliefs have taken root for generations.
It would be easy to feel overwhelmed or to question whether the effort is even worth it. But Josiah didn't hesitate. He sent his forces into these regions, destroying altars and idols, much like he had done in Judah. This teaches us a valuable lesson about persistence and courage. When we're faced with the task of bringing about change, even in places that seem resistant, we can't shy away. Josiah's example shows us that real transformation requires both vision and action, no matter how daunting the task may seem. One of the most inspiring aspects of Josiah's reforms is how they were driven by his deep sense of spiritual responsibility. He could have easily focused on Judah alone, ensuring that his own kingdom was aligned with God. But Josiah's vision was bigger than that. He understood that true worship wasn't meant to be confined to one place. His heart for God led him to reach out, to restore worship in areas that had fallen into spiritual decay.
This is a powerful reminder that when we're passionate about something, whether it's our faith, our work, or our relationships, we should aim to extend our influence beyond our immediate surroundings.
Like Josiah, we're called to think bigger and act with purpose. Josiah's actions in the northern regions also reflect his desire for unity. At a time when Israel was divided, both politically and spiritually, Josiah's reforms were an effort to bring the people back together under the banner of true worship. This speaks to the importance of unity in any context, whether it's a family, a community, or a nation.
Josiah's efforts remind us that division weakens us, but when we come together with a shared purpose, we can achieve incredible things.
His reforms serve as an example of how one person's dedication to a cause can inspire unity and healing in even the most fractured situations. In our own lives, Josiah's expansion of reforms challenges us to think beyond our comfort zones. It's easy to focus on the areas where we feel safe or have control, but true growth happens when we step into unfamiliar territory. Josiah's willingness to expand his efforts beyond Judah shows us that meaningful change often requires us to reach out to areas we've previously ignored or deemed too difficult. Whether it's in our personal development, our careers, or our relationships, we're encouraged to look beyond the familiar and tackle the challenges that seem out of reach. Just as Josiah's reforms brought restoration to the northern regions, our efforts can bring transformation to the parts of our lives that need it most. It's also important to note that Josiah's reforms were not without resistance. The northern regions had long been steeped in idolatry, and changing the hearts and minds of the people wasn't easy. But Josiah didn't let opposition deter him. This teaches us a valuable lesson about perseverance. When we're working toward a goal, especially one that involves changing deeply ingrained patterns or beliefs, there will always be obstacles. The key is to stay focused on the bigger picture and not let resistance cause us to give up. Josiah's determination to see his reforms through, even in the face of resistance, is a reminder that perseverance is crucial to achieving lasting change. Another key takeaway from Josiah's expansion of reforms is the importance of consistency. He didn't just implement changes in Judah and leave it at that. He made sure that the same standards of worship were applied throughout all of Israel. This consistency is crucial in any reform effort, whether spiritual or otherwise. When we're working on improving ourselves or leading others through change, it's essential that we maintain the same level of commitment across all areas. Josiah's reforms remind us that true transformation requires consistency, and that applying the same principles across the board is what leads to lasting impact. Josiah's actions also highlight the importance of leadership in times of reform. He wasn't just issuing orders from the comfort of his throne. He was actively involved in the process of transformation. This hands-on leadership is what made his reforms so successful. People are more likely to follow a leader who is willing to get involved and show that they're invested in the cause.
In our own lives, whether we're leading a team at work, guiding our families, or working on personal growth, Josiah's example reminds us that leadership is about participation, not just direction.
The expansion of Josiah's reforms into the northern regions was a defining moment in his reign. It demonstrated his deep commitment to restoring true worship across all of Israel and set a powerful example of what it means to lead with both vision and action. Josiah's story encourages us to think beyond our immediate surroundings, to push the boundaries of what we believe is possible, and to take bold steps toward achieving the change we wish to see. His reforms weren't just about correcting the past. They were about building a future that was rooted in faith and unity. Despite all of Josiah's faithfulness, his story takes a tragic turn. In the 31st year of his reign, Josiah made a critical decision to go into battle against Egypt. Pharaoh Necho II was passing through the region on his way to assist the Assyrians, and despite warnings, Josiah confronted him at Megiddo. It's a perplexing moment in the Historia Biblias because Josiah, a rei known for his wisdom and dedication to God, made a choice that ultimately led to his downfall. This tragic ending serves as a reminder that even the most righteous of leaders can face moments of vulnerability and miscalculation. Josiah's decision to engage in battle raises many questions. Why would a king so aligned with God's will go against divine warnings? Some scholars believe that Josiah may have misunderstood his role, thinking that defending Judah meant confronting any foreign power, even when it wasn't God's plan.
This is something many of us can relate to. We often act on impulse or out of a sense of duty, even when the signs point in another direction.
Josiah's story reminds us of the importance of discernment and the need to seek God's guidance in every decision, especially when the stakes are high. As Josiah marched into battle, the sense of foreboding was palpable. The battlefield at Megiddo would become his final resting place, a tragic end for a rei who had done so much to restore his kingdom. His death marked the beginning of Judah's decline, a period that would eventually lead to exile. It's a somber reminder of how one moment, one decision, can have far-reaching consequences. Josiah's legacy, while filled with incredible spiritual achievements, is tinged with the sorrow of what could have been. His death not only signaled the end of his reign, but also the beginning of a dark chapter in Judah's history. Josiah's tragic end can be seen as a lesson in humility. Despite all his accomplishments, his story reminds us that no one is immune to making mistakes. Even the most devout and faithful can find themselves in difficult situations, and Josiah's decision to go into battle is a testament to the complexity of leadership. It's a reminder that success, no matter how great, doesn't guarantee immunity from failure. Josiah's life, though filled with triumphs, ends with a sobering realization. Every leader must remain humble and attentive to God's guidance, no matter how confident they may feel. The aftermath of Josiah's death was devastating for Judah. The kingdom that he had worked so hard to restore began to unravel. His successors did not share his devotion to God, and Judah quickly fell back into the spiritual decay that Josiah had fought so hard to eliminate. It's a heartbreaking conclusion to a story that had once been filled with so much hope and promise. Josiah's tragic end reminds us of the fragility of progress. Even the greatest reforms can be undone if the values and principles behind them are not upheld by future generations. As we reflect on Josiah's life, it's easy to wonder why such a faithful king would meet such a tragic end. His story challenges us to consider the complexities of faith and leadership.
Sometimes, even when we are doing everything right, things can go wrong. Josiah's death doesn't negate his achievements, but it does serve as a reminder that life is unpredictable, and even the most righteous paths can lead to difficult outcomes. This is a valuable lesson for anyone striving to make a difference. We must remain steadfast in our faith, but also accept that not everything is within our control.
Josiah's tragic end also highlights the importance of legacy. His death marked the beginning of a long period of decline for Judah, but his reforms were not entirely forgotten. His efforts to restore true worship to God left a lasting impact, even if the immediate aftermath was bleak. This speaks to the enduring nature of good leadership. While circumstances may change, the values and principles that a leader instills can have a lasting influence. Josiah's story encourages us to think about the legacy we are leaving behind, and how our actions today can shape the future, even in ways we may not see. The tragedy of Josiah's end doesn't diminish his greatness as a REI, but it does add a layer of complexity to his story. He was a leader who brought about incredible spiritual renewal, but he was also human, prone to the same vulnerabilities and mistakes as anyone else. This duality is what makes Josiah's story so compelling. His life was a testament to the power of faith and action, but also a reminder of the limitations of human understanding.
Josiah's tragic end teaches us to strive for greatness, but to always remain humble and open to God's guidance, even when we feel certain of our path.
In the end, Josiah's story is both inspiring and sobering. He was a REI who accomplished more in his reign than many before him, but his life ended in tragedy. His story challenges us to reflect on our own lives, our decisions, and our legacies. Josiah's reforms brought Judah back to God, but his death signaled a turning point that would lead to the nation's exile. His life serves as a reminder that, no matter how righteous our intentions, we must always seek God's guidance and remain aware of the fragility of our own plans. As we reach the end of Josiah's story, it's clear that his life offers us powerful lessons on leadership, faith, and the complexities of life's journey. He wasn't just a young king. He was a REI who made bold choices, reformed a broken nation, and reignited the spiritual fire of his people. But as we've seen, even the most righteous path can take unexpected turns.
What about your journey?
Are there areas in your life where you need to take bold action, just as Josiah did with his reforms? Perhaps there are idols in your own life that need to be torn down, or areas that need to be restored and revived. The question I want to leave with you is, what are you waiting for? You've seen how Josiah took charge of his destiny, transforming not only his kingdom but also his legacy. What's stopping you from doing the same in your own life? Are you ready to take those steps, to face the battles that will come, and to create a legacy that lasts? Before you go, make sure to subscribe to the channel and activate the notifications. This way, you'll never miss out on stories like these. Stories that challenge, inspire, and push you to grow in your own life and faith. We've only scratched the surface of what the Historia Biblias has to offer, and there's so much more waiting for you to discover. So, what's your next move?